Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today. Dave Robison has sold over 3,000 homes in the last 22 years and is the principal broker of Go Be Realty. Dave's passion is in making the home buying and selling process better for everyone. As a result, he has been consistently a top 1% agent in Utah. Dave's friends nicknamed him Utah Dave in high school because they said it didn't matter where they went in Utah, Dave would know how to get there and would know somebody there. The name sticks today as Utah Dave has formed a professional real estate network of neighborhood experts all across the state. Dave is deeply invested in the community. He has been president of the Salt Lake Board of Realtors, president of the Utah Association of Realtors, and has won numerous awards. The cool thing is that Dave received another cool thing, I should say, sorry, lots of cool things, but one really cool thing for you guys is that Dave received his associate's degree from Snow College and his bachelor's degree from Brigham Young University. He's married to Dawn, they have 4 kids, and he lives in South Jordan, Utah. So please welcome Dave Robison.
Thank you. I'm pretty excited to be here. So I was here for my first year 30 years ago, just to show you how old I am. And seeing this campus was awesome, but everything's changed since I've been here. So I was curious, how many people in this class are actually from Utah? Okay, and then how many are outside of Utah? So where are you guys from outside of Utah? Speak up. Vegas, Idaho, Colorado. Cool. Okay. Anyone from South Jordan area? A few. Sweet. Okay. So international. Yeah. Where at? Ecuador. Nicaragua. Honduras. Awesome. Sweet. Cool. Okay. So I came to Snow basically because some of my family were from the area. So I have relatives that were from Emery County. Any Emery County people here? And then I had family from Sevier County and, of course, San Pete. So we have San Pete locals here? A few? Sweet, awesome. So anyways, Snow is my favorite college. I claim Snow above BYU. I love Snow. And when I was at Snow, I did not know what I was going to go into. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was really just kind of taking it day by day. And I didn't know what I was going to do at all, where I didn't even plan my classes right to transfer to BYU. So when I went to BYU, I had to retake some classes here. I don't know if that still happens today. But anyway, so I just didn't know what I was going to do. And then when I was at BYU, I didn't know what I was going to do then either. And I remember thinking entrepreneurship was pretty awesome. It was pretty cool. But I felt like everyone in the class had some big idea of what they were going to do for their business. I don't know how many people in here have ideas of what they want to do for a business. A few? Who in here just doesn't know what they would do, but it sounds cool? Quite a few? Okay. So that's kind of where I was at. I was like, it sounds cool, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just taking it day by day. Well, I graduated from BYU, and my dad at one time, he was a builder, and he was going to build a neighborhood. So I thought, well, maybe I'll get my real estate license, and so I can just sell homes for him. So I got my license, and he never, ever had that neighborhood develop. It never happened. So I basically had to figure out a way to fend on my own. So I remember looking online, this was back in 1999, right? I was looking online, and I could not find a website that had homes for sale that was the entire MLS. I had to basically go to a store, look at a magazine, look at another magazine. I just couldn't find it. And so I created a website. And I was one of the first ones in Utah to have a website with all the homes on it. So I found a little a little something that other people didn't have that I thought was going to be a pretty high demand. Back then, people had what's called dial-up internet. Have you heard of dial-up? You had to connect in it with like, it was really super slow. It's nothing like you guys are used to. A lot of people didn't have internet back then too, so it wasn't mainstream by any means. I was a pioneer, you could say. And so I said, well, what am I going to name it? So I came up with utahhomepro.com. So I had this website, utahhomepro.com. I put it on the web, and then I figured out a way to advertise for it so it could come up in searches. And in the advertising, some people went to my site, they filled out a form, and I basically knew I had to catch them somehow. So back then we had a lot of foreclosures. So I had people sign up for a catch. And that catch was get a free list of foreclosures. And so they'd sign up for foreclosures and then they'd shoot an email. Well, I would get this email that someone signed up. And I just remember the very first one I got. I remember sitting at my computer and thinking, I got a lead. This is cool. It worked. I spent $1,000 in prepaid advertising that month. And for me, $1,000 was a lot of money. It sounds like you guys are giving away money right now. $7,000. That's legit. I wish I could go back in time and get that. So $1,000 I spent, and I remember sitting there at my computer staring at this lead, and I was like, well, I don't want to call them. I don't know what to say. No one's teaching me how to do this. I'm not going to call them. And then I had a war with myself. So my other side said to me, well, you just spent $1,000, stupid. Like, you're going to pay $1,000 and then not finish the deal? And then my other side was like, well, yeah, I don't want to call them. And this was a real like argument in my head sitting at my computer, right? And the other guy said, well, shut it off then. You're not going to spend $1,000. What are you going to tell your wife? You just keep spending $1,000 to get emails and, not making any money? And I said, well, I'm not shutting it off. And he goes, well, then you better call. So after this war, I figured out I got to call because I'm not going to shut it off. I got to do it. And I find this is a common thing with a lot of people that get into my line of field, or really any line of field, is there's something called call reluctancy. And whenever I talk to people, they're like, oh, make a phone call? That's easy. I'll do that any day. Well, I've had probably dozens of agents come work for me over the years. And I tell you, every single one of them has call reluctancy. They don't make the phone calls, or they're scared to. I remember giving a guy 100 leads, and he called one of them, and then he came and asked me for a loan, right? This is common, and I see some of your faces like, what? But this is common, and every person that would come work for me, they were like, what? I'll make the calls. I'll never do that. But when it came down to it, none of them would make the calls. So who won at the end of the day? It was the person making the calls, right? So I started making the calls. Well, then I encountered another problem. And by the way, as I'm doing this, I'll give you a little example. My first year, I made $10,000 in selling real estate, okay? Not enough to support a family, not enough to do anything really, right? My second year, I made $12,000, okay? My third year, I made $20,000. So for the first 3 years, it really sucked, right? Like there wasn't money really coming in, not enough to support a family, not enough to build a business. It just was grueling. And people don't always see that in people's other people's successful business lives. They always think you were successful overnight, right? But there was a lot of pain there and not making money and having these arguments with yourself. So I remember in calling some of the leads, I would tell them, hey, I'm Dave with Utah Home Pro. And they always said, who? Every single time. I was like, you were just on my site like 30 minutes ago. And they're like, oh, I was on a bunch of sites. I don't remember Utah Home Pro. And so I kept having this problem. And one day it occurred to me, and I also was telling my friends, oh, go to my website, utahhomepro.com. Well, about a week later, they'd say, hey, Dave, what's the name of your website again? And so it got irritating. I'm like, the name is not sticky, right? The name's not sticky. And I remember I said to myself, I got to have an awesome website name. And that website name has to be something that you tell someone once and they'll never forget, right? That was important for marketing perspective because your marketing costs are really low. And you can get people to your site when it's sticky. So I said, I got to have something sticky. And second, I want a name of a website that basically says, I'm the expert, right? And so those were my two criteria. Something sticky, something that shows that I'm the expert. And so I thought about it. I was passionate about it for months. And I just remember just for months looking up all sorts of names, coming up with all sorts of names, Googling or on the search engines, trying to figure out which domains I could take. And then all of a sudden one day, after a few months, it hit me. It hit me that my friends in high school called me Utah Dave. And so I ran to the search engine, and some guy in Ohio owned UtahDave.com. And I was so frustrated. It's like, dude, first of all, you're in Ohio. What the heck, right? And I was like, second of all, you sell golf clubs, I was like, this is, and your site looks crappy. Like, it does not look like a good business. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, I want to buy UtahDave.com. And he goes, no, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it. So, no, you can't buy it. So I was like, all right, fine. So I saw that it was going to expire in like 7 months. So I put it in my calendar. I followed up. I saw that the day it expired, he didn't renew it. So I was like, sweet. Then it had like this grace period. And then as soon as it became available, I bought it. But I was really passionate that it was going to be my website no matter what. So I just followed up on it for 8 months or so. So I bought UtahDave.com. The next thing was crazy. I had bought a truck, and on this, so it was like a U-Haul, like a moving truck. On this truck, I had on it said Robison and Company, my last name, and it had my name, Dave Robison. And I had this truck parked on Redwood Road in South Jordan on this main street for probably a year. And no one really called me off of the truck. No one really knew the truck existed. No one knew who I was. And then I decided, well, I'm going to do a new branding with Utah Dave. So I put up a desert on the back of the truck, put UtahDave.com in big bold letters, put it on the truck, and all of a sudden in 1 month, pretty much everyone in South Jordan knew who Utah Dave was and knew that truck. It blew my mind that before I had a truck, but no one knew who in the world I was or what I did. And in 1 month of good marketing and good sticky name branding, almost everyone knew who I was there. What's the result of that? Well, when I first was, I'm from South Jordan, but I had my license for probably 4 years, and I had not sold a single home in South Jordan. The minute I figured out the stickiness with the name and the website and also the desert, just making it pop, I immediately, that was the beginning of me becoming the #1 agent in South Jordan and West Jordan and Harriman in that area within like probably 5 years. So it was catapulted. It was really fast after that. So then I had opened up my first bank account in a bank in South Jordan, and it's on the main intersection. And I remember when I was on that intersection, we were driving by that intersection, I said to myself, I want that as my office. I want that as my office. And I was really passionate about it. I didn't have the money to do it yet. I was still building my business. But after about 3 years of passionately driving by, saying to myself, that's going to be my office. I'm going to make it happen. All of a sudden, it came up for sale, right? And it was supposed to be torn down by UDOT. It came up for sale, and I immediately jumped on it. I ended up buying it, and that became my office. And the thing that was interesting about that is that it took me 3 years to get ready for it, and I was really passionate about it. But it took about 3 years for it to come to fruition. This is something that I tell a lot of the real estate agents that I work with. Is a lot of them expect results overnight. And I know sometimes in the business world, especially if you're working with investors or angels or VCs, they're going to expect things a lot faster. But in my world, things don't happen overnight, right? In my world, they take time. And because it takes time, you have to look at things long term. So that was one of the things that I always did, is I looked long term. So I was passionate for 3 years that was going to be my office. I made it come about. Then I started to build relationships with people, such builders, throughout the whole valley. Anyone Jazz fans in here? A few? Okay, so I go to the Jazz games regularly. I have season tickets. I found that when I had builders that I'd ask them to go to a Jazz game at, they always said one thing to me. They always said, "Where's your seats?" Every single time, right? If I said Upper Bowl, they were like, I'm busy, right? I wouldn't be able to have time of the day with them in that. So back in like 2010, I really put myself out there, right? And this is one time that I got lucky. So I put myself out there, and I bought into what's called the Jazz 100. And that was not cheap. It was like 150 grand to get in. But there were people that had spent $1 million to get in. It's kind of like real estate. You had to buy your seat location. So my seat was row 1, right behind the Jazz bench, right? And so I knew my wife was going to kill me if I didn't make money that year, and all my money back. And so I had to get on the phone, and I had to call all these builders again. So I start calling them and texting them, because they don't really answer their phone. So I'm texting them. I'm also calling and texting owners of companies, like all these entrepreneurs that have companies that are being really successful. I'm texting them all. I'm calling them all. Well, one of these guys became my friend. I just kind of knew of him. We didn't know each other. But I text him, and I said, hey, what about a Jazz game Friday, row 1, behind the Jazz bench, and it comes in the 100 Club, so you get dinner and stuff, right? And I found out later that he was in a board meeting with a lot of really important board people. And in the middle of his board meeting, he read my text, and he just says, "Holy shit!" And I'm editing for this sake, but anyway, he was, and everyone stared at him. He's like, "What?" He's like, "I just got offered row 1 Jazz seats Friday with Utah." And these other guys were like, "Wait, you don't know who that is." So there was a combination of my name back then with my marketing was doing a really good job. There's billboards and stuff. people had seen the billboard or whatever. But then I had the jazz offering, right? So I wasn't really ultra successful then at all by any means. 2010, I was pretty dead broke, okay? And it's because 2006 through 2009, I was building my business, I was making money. But I failed in a big way in 2008 and 2009. I basically was not watching my books, okay? The market was doing awesome. The money kept growing up, but I was not looking at my finances on a monthly basis of what the income was, what the outcome was, or the outgoing expenses were. I was not watching it. I was just doing sales. That was it. And then at the end of the year, I'd do my taxes, right? So because I wasn't watching it on a month to month, when the market started to tank in 2008, I was just watching it on a yearly basis. I was not watching it on a monthly basis. And so all of a sudden the market tanked. I was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point in marketing. I did not change my marketing. I didn't change anything to the business. I just kept plowing forward. Now, one of the reasons why I did plow forward is because I knew that other agents weren't going to advertise during a recession, but I wasn't watching my numbers on how effective my advertising was. So that's how I failed. I just kept spending postcards, billboards, everything. And so by 2010, I actually had accumulated over a couple $100,000 in debt. And in 2008, because I didn't make any money that year, because I was making revenue, I wasn't making profit. Because I didn't make any money that year, my kids qualified for free school lunch, right? So I was living off of credit and just moving forward. I should have watched my P&Ls on a monthly basis at least. I should have been making adjustments, but I wasn't doing that. And so by the time 2010 hit, I still have a couple $100,000 in debt now from those previous years. And because I have all that debt, when I was about to do the jazz tickets, my wife was like, "Oh, we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. Our cars aren't paid for, and you're gonna pay money for jazz?" Like, she was pretty wigged out, right? So when I had asked this guy to come, he dropped anything he was doing. So I found out that one way to get in front of people is to do something that would make them drop whatever plans they have and come with you, right? And I could not get people to go to lunch with me that were running companies. They were too busy. They didn't want to go to lunch with someone who's potentially a sales guy. And so by doing the jazz thing, I started to get all these people to come to lunch with me. Well, that first guy that I invited to the jazz game, we not only sold him a few homes, but we sold numerous people in his company, the people that were at that board meeting homes. And that didn't just work for just that instance, but it continued to work where the jazz actually make me money every year. So you could say I get paid to go watch the jazz games now, right? So that was kind of a pretty cool learning experience, is how to get in front of people that normally don't get in front of anyone, and how to build relationships with them. Okay. So after that, we come into 2012, the market starts improving. I start watching what other entrepreneurs are doing, and I'm reaching out to some of these entrepreneurs, right? I remember one day I had an office that was next to Rumby Island Grill's office. Anyone heard of Rumby? Good restaurant. So the owner of that, his name's Dave as well, he went on a mission, LDS mission to Jamaica. And I had gone on an LDS mission to Jamaica. And so when I got back, I knew of him because he'd been years before me. I knew of him because he started Zuka Juice and then sold it to Jamba Juice. And then he started Rumby. And his office was right next to mine. And I remember saying to myself, you got to go talk to him. And I said, I don't dare go talk to him. He's successful. What am I going to say? And I said to myself, look, here's the deal. If you don't go talk to him, you will never know what could have happened for your future. Like, you'll never know what would have come out of talking to him. So at least just go talk to him. So I took him some Jamaican drinks. He wasn't there. I was relieved because I didn't have to talk to him. And I wrote a note in Jamaican to him just so he could know that I speak the language and we should be bros, right? And so anyway, I left him a drink and left him my card. And I think a couple weeks went by. He never came down, never reciprocated. Then one day he walked out and he saw me. And he's like, hey, that was really cool that you did that. Thank you. And then he invited me to be part of this entrepreneur group. And it's called EO, Entrepreneur Organization.org. And what it is it's a group of entrepreneurs throughout Utah that meet on a regular basis, and they talk about the worst thing in their business, and they talk about the best thing in the business. And he introduced me to this group. If it had not been for him or this group, I would have given up many times in my career. There were times that I actually talked to him and I said, dude, this sucks. Like, this is hard. And he said, Dave, think of it this way. You are the luckiest person on earth. I was like, okay, I don't feel too lucky right now. What are you talking about? And he says, look, no, people usually get normal jobs, right? But when you're an entrepreneur, you actually have an opportunity to grow as a person at a level that no one else can. And that is why you're the luckiest person on earth, because you have an ability or an opportunity to grow your skill set and to be able to grow something so awesome that no one else will ever be able to do. And he helped me kind of get through some of those hard times. Joining a mastermind group or an entrepreneur group with other entrepreneurs has been one of the best things I've ever done. I really don't think I would have hit 3,000 homes or even half it if I had not joined an entrepreneur group after. What I learned through that is, like, college was awesome, right? But once you get out of college, you can't stop learning. And the way to learn is meeting with other people that are going through the same thing you are. We all have different businesses. We're not competitors, but we have the same stories. We have the same employee problems. We have the same revenue problems, the same expense problems. And when you are sharing those problems with other entrepreneurs, they often will have a story that you can be able to figure out how to fix issues in your own company. So anyway, that's a little bit about my journey and my story. I guess, do you have any questions or?
What advice would you give to someone who's like looking to be a realtor in the future, especially with the market right now? How it's changed.
Yeah. She wants to know, what advice would I give to someone who wants to be into real estate with the way the market's changed right now? This is hard because real estate agents say, like in Salt Lake County, there's 10,000 of them, and there's only 1,000 homes selling, okay? So you do the math, how many are not eating that month, right? 9,000, and if you're like me, I do a few deals more than they do, so that takes even more away from them. So you're getting into an industry that is a commodity. And what happens with commodities, when you first get in, you pretty much are doing stuff for nothing. And so when I got into real estate, I only made 10,000 that first year. I pretty much did stuff for nothing because I didn't have experience and I didn't have anything to offer them at first, right? So my advice would be, and this is not, if A, you either find a really good niche, or B, you tag along something and get experience first. Anyone else?
How did you find the group of entrepreneurs? Like Denver and St. You know, it's a little bit different. And so, I mean, there's lots of people who are entrepreneurs in St. But I don't know if there's any groups here.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that we don't have anyone in our group that's from St. Pete, and I would just make your own, really. When you're in a small area like this, you just start getting entrepreneurs that aren't competing, and maybe join a local chapter up north first, and get experience in what they talk about and how they roll their meetings. Because we don't give advice to each other, we only share stories. But that's what I would probably look into.
Any other questions for Dave?
Okay, well, you guys, good luck on getting the $7,000. Have fun at Snow. This is like the best years ever at Snow College, so enjoy it.
Thanks, Dave.
You bet.